The storm had knocked out every line of communication. John sat in his dark living room, the wind rattling the broken windows. That's when he saw at first just a shadow at the edge of the yard, tall, thin, impossibly still, a skinwalker. Its head tilted unnaturally, eyes glinting in the faint moonlight. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, but the roads were flooded, the phone dead. He could only watch as it moved closer, silent and deliberate, waiting, and he realized it wasn't hunting for prey. It was hunting him. The old homestead had been in my family for generations, a lone sentinel against the vast, unforgiving wilderness. My name is John, and I'd always found a strange comfort in its isolation. The wind here tells stories, my grandfather used to say. But after the storm, the stories changed. It wasn't just a storm. It was a biblical deluge, a liquid curtain that fell from a bruised purple sky and cut us off from the world. For 3 days the rain hammered down, turning the dirt roads to impassable rivers of mud and knocking out the power and phone lines. When the rain finally stopped, a silence descended that was heavier and more unnerving than the storm itself. That's when I found the first one, a deer laid out at the edge of the woods, but not in any way a wolf or a bear would have left it. It was arranged. Its limbs were bent at impossible angles, its head twisted back to stare at its own flank. An icy dread, colder than any winter wind, crept down my spine. I backed away, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Over the next few days more appeared. A fox, a coyote, even a bear cub. Each one was a grotesque sculpture of bone and fur, a silent, chilling message left just within my sight line from the house. The feeling of being watched became a constant, suffocating companion. I'd catch flickers of movement at the edge of the tree line, shapes that were too tall, too thin, too fast to be human or animal. At night, the sounds started. Whispers that seemed to slither through the cracks in the old log walls. Sometimes it sounded like my own name, spoken in a voice that was a dry, rasping imitation of my wife's who had passed years ago. Other times it was a high-pitched chittering, a language of clicks and guttural noises that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I boarded up the lower windows, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold the hammer steady. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I'd sit in the dark, my grandfather's old shotgun resting across my knees, listening to the things outside. They were testing the house. I knew it. A scratch at the door here, a thump on the roof there. They were learning, patient and methodical. One night I saw a face peer into a gap in the window boards. It was pale, with eyes that seemed too large and dark, reflecting the moonlight with a dead, predatory gleam. It wasn't human, not any more. My grandfather's journals, which I dismissed as the ramblings of an old man, now seemed like a dire prophecy. He wrote of the dying folklore, of legends he'd heard from the Navajo elders who once lived in these parts. He wrote of the skinwalkers, the Yi-Naldlushi, shape-shifters, witches who had traded their humanity for unnatural power. They come after the storms, he'd written in a shaky hand. They mimic voices to lure you out. They enjoy the fear. Don't let them in. The words were a death sentence. The storm had passed, but it had left something behind, something ancient and hungry. The homestead wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a cage, and I was trapped inside with the mounting certainty that they weren't just trying to scare me. They were waiting for me to make a mistake. One slip, one moment of weakness, and they would be inside. The food and water I had would last, but my sanity was fraying with each passing hour. The isolation was a weapon they were using against me. My valiant effort to fortify my home felt pathetic against such a malevolent, intelligent force. Tonight, the scratching has a new pattern. It sounds like they're trying to write something on the door, a message just for me. The whispers are closer now, coming from just outside my bedroom window. They know I'm in here. They know I'm alone. And they're getting impatient. The real horror wasn't the storm, but what the storm brought with it. And I have a terrible feeling they're about to come in. Thank you for watching this first part. If you want to see what happens to John, make sure you resubscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss part 2. See you next time.